Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my Brazilian rain tree. I'm going to be pruning it up and repotting it. Here is a look at the tree. I just brought it from the plant room out to the greenhouse yesterday. And this is the new front for the tree that I picked last time I worked on it. So when I repot it, I'd like to reorient the tree. Here's the front of the pot, so I'll have to twist the tree around. And this will be the third root pruning I've done on this tree since I've owned it. And this tree came from Connor. He got it at Tropical Expressions and he gave it to me, I think in 2018 maybe, somewhere around there. So it's starting to get more mature. The styling is coming along. It's getting that nice kind of umbrella canopy on the tree. So I'm going to begin today by pruning the tree up. I'm going to begin the pruning by pruning back the longer shoots from the winter. So you can see how they've extended out. So I'll prune them back, keeping some leaves on the shoot using directional pruning. So this one I can take it off here. And I leave a bit of a stub for dieback on these trees always. And once I have all this new foliage pruned back, I'll then go in and look at the styling of the tree. And you have to be careful, they have thorns on them, which are quite sharp. Okay, that's got all the major long branches pruned off. So now I've got to prune for direction and looking at my branch structure. So any, branches that are growing back in towards the tree can be pruned away. I can also clean up my pruning cuts from the last time I pruned the tree. You can see here's a shoot that's died back, so I can take the tip off. Like that. There's one here. Remove any dead leaves from in here. So once this tree gets into the sunshine here, it should grow quite well after it recovers from the repotting. The last time I repotted this tree, I bare rooted it and gave it a really good root prune. And the tree kind of sulked for a long time. Like almost 6 months. The leaves came out and then they stayed folded up. And then gradually as the root system recovered and got stronger, they started opening up more and more, and then eventually it behaved normally. They would open up for the entire day. So it's quite common, after repotting for these trees to sulk, kind of recovering from that root pruning. And hopefully, every time you root prune them, the root pruning gets a little less drastic and the tree will recover a lot quicker. Now, some people do defoliate the trees when they're repotting them, which can definitely be done. But I think, by the time I'm done pruning today, the foliage will be quite sparse and the tree should recover quite easily from repotting. Now that I've got all those long shoots trimmed back, I'm going to look at the structure of the tree. Just follow each branch up, make sure it's dividing from 1 to 2, and pruning away branches that just aren't growing a good direction, and cleaning up my stubs. This branch is growing in towards the center of the tree, so I'll remove that. There's a big stub here I can clean up. Now I have a good flat branch here that's coming out horizontally, and the rest of the branch is quite upright. I could take that whole upper part off, and I think I will. I just don't want this tree to keep growing larger every year. I want to try and improve the structure always. So I'm going to take this whole top off this branch here, leaving some room for dieback. So here I go, big cut. That comes off. There's a stub here I can clean up. And I can prune this branch back further to there. And I think on this branch I have sort of an upright branch. I'm going to take that off. Cleaning that structure up a bit. Now on this branch coming out the front here, again I have a nice horizontal branch and then this part of it goes vertical. So I'm going to take the vertical part off. So here's another big cut coming up. Here I go. Like that. And you can see how that flattens these lower branches. It opens the structure up. Here I have an upright part on this branch I can take off. Always being careful of the thorns. Back a bit further. There's a stub here. There's a vertical shoot coming off of this branch. I can take that right off. Opening up that canopy for light. And I'm always rotating the tree as I'm pruning it and looking at the branch structure. So here's another branch growing upright. I can take that off, keeping my branch fanning outwards from the center of the tree. I do have this as more of an upright center trunk to fill in the middle of the tree, so I'll definitely keep that. I can prune this branch back a bit more. There's a branch here kind of crossing back across the center of the tree. I'm going to remove that. Another big cut for the tree. I can take this branch back further. Taking that tip off. I've got a horizontal branch lower down on it. There's a stub I can clean up here. I can take the tip off this branch also. That's gone. Some more branches I can shorten here, I believe. Yeah. Back to here. So branches aren't crossing each other. There's a branch here that's kind of growing underneath all these other branches. I'm going to remove that one. There's a stub I can clean up here. This branch looks like it died back. Take that off. This branch can be, that one's okay. There's a vertical part on this branch I can remove. Let me go back to the front here. There's a branch here crossing in towards the center of the tree I can remove. And I can remove this upper part off of this branch back to here. Like that. There's one going in towards the center of the tree here I can remove. clean up some more stubs. And I'm always looking for branches, like here's a little branch popping out here lower down. So I could take the whole upper part of this branch off. You know, always trying to keep some green growth on the tree, on the branch. So here comes this whole upper part coming off. So I'm just looking for places I can shorten branches. Take this tip off there. I don't want this tree to just keep getting a little larger every year, otherwise I'll end up with a huge tree. My whole idea of bonsai is to keep the tree as small as possible and still have all the characteristics of a mature tree, if possible. Yeah, I've got a long branch up the back here I could prune back. And I've got one. I can use the tip off here. Yeah, so yeah, I'm always looking for back budding so I can bring the branches back more compact. And it's not always easy to do. I could bring this one back here, I will. Again, just to shorten that branch. I would like to shorten this one, but I don't know if I have any growth. I don't really have any back budding on it. Take this stub out. I may even take this whole branch out. From the front view, it's right in front of a back branch. I could shorten it back, way back to here. I think I will. So here I go, big cut. There's a stub here I can clean up. Now, can I shorten this branch? Yes. Well, I think that's it for the pruning. It's a little empty up top here, but that, as I said, you know, that'll fill in. Yeah, so that's it for the pruning. Some good reduction on the tree. It's not quite so big. It's yeah, reduced back, and it should back bud a lot once it gets out here in the summer. And I can just keep working on the structure, trying to improve it always. But I think, you know, it's got pleasing lines to this tree. I think it's very flowing. It's getting a nice canopy on it, and the trunk is looking good. It's starting to muscle up. Yeah, so I'm very happy with it. It's developing well. Here's a look at what I took off the tree today. So, you know, a fair amount, some thick branches. Yeah, quite a bit of foliage. But there's still lots left on the tree to fill out this summer. The next step for my Brazilian rain tree is to repot it. So I'm going to put it in the same pot. It's a plastic pot, but it's a nice size for it. I'm just going to rotate it to get the new front in the correct orientation, and I'll be bare rooting it and root pruning it to get a nice beautiful radial root base that'll eventually flare up really nicely into the trunk. So here I go. Before I get into the repotting, I'm just going to show you a few updates. The world outside is greening up. All the leaves are coming out on the trees now. Let's head into the poly house. I want to show you the elm and the buckthorn that I repotted this spring. I was very worried about them. I didn't want them to die. So here's here's the elm. You can see it's leafed out really, really nicely. It's looking quite good. So it's in its new cement pot. It's looking nice. The ash tree beside it is also leafing out. I repotted that this spring and gave it quite a severe root pruning. So it's leafing out nicely. And here is the buckthorn. So far it's looking good. The shoots are growing and extending, which is good. Most of the branches survived. The only one that didn't is there's a thin one here coming off this old dead branch that didn't make it. Even the one out front survived, and it looks like it's budding from the old wood there. That's that weird crossing branch across the front that I may remove someday. That'll be a decision for the future. But yeah, so far both the buckthorn and the elm are surviving nicely. I moved my 60th birthday Scots pine outside yesterday. Julian helped me lift it up here. So it's looking good. The needles are coming out nicely on it. Yeah, I'm still waiting for good surface roots so I can eventually repot it out of this big tub. Yeah, hopefully they'll come. It's just a waiting game. My Portulacaria afroforest is really growing well now. It's got a lot of growth on it. It's greening up nicely. It's looking good. Before I repot the Brazilian Raintree, I'm going to spray it down with soap and water just to make sure there's no insects on it. So here I go. And I'll spray from underneath too. While I'm waiting to rinse off the tree, I'll show you the 2 previous repottings of this tree, just a quick summary, so you can see the progress of the root base. Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. We're back for part 2 of potting up my Brazilian Raintree. I took care of Connor's bonsai trees all last summer while he was away in Korea, and as a gift he gave me this Brazilian Raintree. So I'm really happy to get one. I've always wanted one. And even on the ones with the low spreading canopies, I think this lowest branch is just too low. This one is okay. You know, to have a short little trunk. I kind of have to imagine this tree, you know, getting thicker and larger. So I think definitely this trunk here, or this branch, is too low. Just like that. You can grow these Brazilian Raintrees from cuttings, so I'll use that branch I pruned off as a cutting. I'll just remove these lower leaves like that and stick it in some bonsai soil and keep it well watered in a nice bright situation, so near the window, and hopefully it'll grow into another tree. There it goes. Okay, let's start combing the roots out now in a radial pattern. Okay, so here's where we're at. We've got one big thick root coming down and then dividing down at this level. We have another thick root coming off to the side. I'm going to come in and cut right here, just below this horizontal root. So right to here. So here I go. Just like that. Take those roots away. There's another one coming down here that I got to prune away. So I will get rid of that also, like that. And that gives me a fairly flat, the start of a radial root system. There's some here I could prune that are sticking up a little high. This one right here, get rid of that. Like that. Crossing root here, we'll get rid of that. Some more sticking up here, we'll get rid of those. Cut this one back. Like that. And I think that's not bad. The danger is that root is quite thick, and it has a lot of root mass around it, so that's going to take off and thicken up more than any of these small ones around this side. So I may want to cut those back even further just to reduce the vigor on this side, and I think I will. So I'll definitely give them a profile prune here. And if there's some I can get some vigor out of the root system on this side, I'll do it. Maybe this top one here. Get rid of that like that. That's better. That's not too bad, actually. I think that's going to be it. I'll spin the tree around now so you can see it from all angles. It's the side, the back, the other side, and back somewhere to the front. Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my Brazilian Raintree, repotting it, and doing a bit of trimming. There it goes. Wow, very root bound. It definitely needed a larger pot. And I can begin to rake out the roots. Okay, I think I'm going to wash the root system now. Just get all the old soil out so I can see what's going on a little more clearly. It's a very quiet Sunday morning. Let me get it up right here. I'll comb the roots out. So you can see they're not totally balanced. There's some long ones, some shorter ones, some thicker ones, some skinnier ones. So I'm going to try and sort all that out. Okay, so that's combed out. I'm going to start by doing a trim around the edges, just getting rid of the long ones. This kind of balances the vigor in the root system. And this is the part of the root that sticks up. So here's a better view of that. So you can see everything's nice flowing into the soil except for that one root. So that has to be removed. So I'm going to come in with my knob cutters and try and get around that root and take it off. Here I go. Like that. This pot is really large for this meager tree and root base, but I think it'll grow quite quickly into this pot. Okay, that looks good there. And now I can add the soil. All right, here I go with the soil. That feels good and stable. All right, here I go with the pruning. It'll be kind of a profile prune. I'm looking at the tree, and even after the pruning, it doesn't look ridiculous in that pot. Like, it doesn't look really tiny. So I think by the end of summer, it'll probably look quite comfortable in the pot. The trunk may still be a little skinny, but I think the canopy will fill out and it'll look quite reasonable. And then over the next, few years, probably 5 years, it can stay in this pot and it'll keep thickening and developing, and it'll look quite good, I think. That was a look back in time at the root base development. So hopefully this repotting I'll have even a better root base. Time will tell. Okay, it's time to rinse off the tree now. So yesterday I mixed up a big batch of soil. I'm getting ready for the repotting of all my tropical trees, which is exciting. Okay, so that is all rinsed off now. I'm ready to start the repotting. So the front of my tree, I have this little lower branch coming straight out towards the front so I can remember where the front was. So I'll take out the front marker and I'll get the tree out of the pot. So here I go. That came out quite easily. So here is a look at the roots. Quite a mat. That's good. So I'll begin combing out the soil from the roots. So I think this is good. I don't think I left the repotting too late. It's a nice density of roots in the soil here. It's not so packed that it makes it difficult to comb out the roots. I'm using the end of my root rake to come in and sort out all these circling roots just to untangle them. It's very smooth, this, so it just glides across the roots. And it's really good for sorting out tangled up roots. And I find, you know, because it's smooth, it just glides around the roots. It's a wooden chopstick, I find, has more friction and can tear the roots a little more easily. So I'd highly recommend, you know, using something like this that's rounded, smooth, and it can really sort your root system out without doing any damage. Now, a lot of these long roots will get pruned away in the future as I'm working away on this root base once I have it bare rooted. But for the initial sorting out of all these tangled roots, it works really, really well. And again, you know, the test, I tell people, rub something smooth across your skin, which is like rubbing the roots. And something smooth like this doesn't hurt at all. Whereas if you use something wooden, you can feel the friction. And, you know, a smooth polished chopstick would work quite well too, a wooden one. But I would recommend, you know, the metal ones have the strength. They're not going to bend or break. And they're really easy on the roots. And I think I've got it cleaned out enough that I'm going to take it over to the washing station now and continue bare rooting the tree. Here is a look at my root base. So most of the soil just fell off the root system. I just kind of shook it and a lot of it came off, and then I washed it. So I see a lot of problems with this root base. If I look on the bottom, there's one big heavy root growing out here. And if you look on the top here, I've got a big heavy root coming out here and one over here. So, yeah. So you can see, you know, these two roots are opposite. There's not a lot of radial roots in this direction and not a whole lot in this direction. So I don't want, you know, the root system to just continue having two radial roots. The front of the tree is somewhere here, so I want to develop a nice, you know, radial root system around the whole tree. So I'm going to begin the root pruning now. So I've got my scissors, and the first root I'm going to prune, I have a crossing root on top here. I'm going to take that away. Like that. Okay. The next root, I've got one here that's not going a radial direction. I'm going to prune that one away. There's another root gone. I do have some radial roots coming out from the trunk here in this direction, which is good. But some of them are quite low down in the root base. I've kind of got a bit of a multi-plane root base, some way up top here, some way down here. So I think I've got to address this big thick root here. It's a bit of a problem. There is another root kind of possibly fused with it. No, it's not fused. That I can untangle here. And I think there's enough roots in this direction that I can remove that big thick one. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roots there. So I'm going to remove that thick one. I'll just remove one root on the top here. And then I'll have to come in with the pruners and cut that root off. I'm going to try it with my scissors here because I need something fairly accurate to get in here. So here I go. So that big thick root is gone. And I will clean it up. I'm trying to take that back a little further. Like that. So that's one major problem reduced on the tree. The next major problem is the other side here. I'm going to prune away a root on the top here. And I have the same problem here. I have a big, thick root. Now, on this one, I'll prune away this one crossing root here. On this one, I'm looking. I don't think I can remove it because I don't have a lot of other roots around it. But I can certainly take it back. It does divide under here nicely. I'm going to take this part of the root off. And I'm just going to comb it out to see what I have there. Seeing your root system properly is the first step in correcting it. If you're just, if you leave the soil on your tree, you're just kind of blindly root pruning, guessing what's going on. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion here. There's a root going the wrong way here I can take off. There's one on the top here. I pruned this one away. I'm just going to clean that up a bit more. Getting it a little more flush. There's one going the wrong direction there. And there's one going the wrong direction there. So any roots that aren't flowing out from the trunk, kind of like the wax on a candle, you prune away if you have, better roots surrounding it. So the other thing, I don't want this root to be too horizontal. I want it to flow down into the soil, just like this side. So this one is kind of a bit too horizontal here, this thick one, so I'm going to take that back like that. And also this one. And there's some more roots that aren't growing a good direction there. And then I've got a really thick one coming out here that I can prune back. Taking the end off that root. There's a thick one here I can prune back. This one's going a poor direction. There's one sticking up here, straight up. So the problem, my front of the tree is here, and this root is coming kind of straight out at you. That's not so desirable. It's kind of like an eye poker root. So if I could have it dividing, each side of the front view, it would be a lot better. But I've got to see what roots I have around it. It'd be nice to be able to do what I did on this side, but I don't think I can. Well, I can prune off this part of this root. Like that. And then this one I can take back a bit further. That helps get rid of those eye poker roots. Better do a little more combing here. Make sure I can see all the roots. So I do have, I've got a root down lower, but that is, I think, too low. Yeah, it's a difficult situation. If I take it off, I've got roots down below that I think are better. So I had better take it off. It's just a big problem. So I'll come in here on the angle and prune that root off. Oh, I think I'm going to need my ratcheting pruners. It's a bit tougher than I thought. All right, here I go. Big cut coming up. Wow, that's gone. Now, there is a possibility, I'll get dieback on the trunk until it heals from that wound, but usually, if you get dieback going up the trunk, it may die for a bit and then eventually, in the future, it'll heal over that dead bit. So I've got to clean this cut up here. So I need to come in and start removing this stump where the root was. So that's got that smoothed out. And there is some roots down lower here, which will hopefully feed that section of the trunk and keep it alive. And from the front view, these roots are quite nice. But I will have to prune away some of these ones up here that are a little high. Make sure everything's going the right direction here. Prune this one back. Yeah, so now, I have the decision. You can see this root base is down low here, and this one's up higher. The question is, do I prune this one off similar to this one and use these lower roots? Which there are roots underneath it. I think I'd better. You can see from this view, it just wouldn't look right having two planes of roots on the tree. So I'm going to prune this one off. Nice roots, but they're just too high. That one comes off. There's one sticking up here. I'm going a strange direction there. Okay, making progress here on the root base. Okay, I think this one flows down into the soil enough that I don't have to remove that, but I will have to clean up my cut here some more. Like that. I think that's good. Now there's a bit of a ball on this root here. It could be, where a root is healed, but it's pretty thick. I'm going to take that off. Oh, it's just part of a root that was sticking out. Almost fell off. Okay, now, is that looking good is the question. Pull out some of these roots nice and radial. And there's one sticking up here I can take away. So from the front view, my root base is looking better. I am quite high with these roots, and I do have some below, so I think I'm going to take those off also. No, I won't. If I do, there's a lot of pruning scars here, and I might get dieback going up the trunk. It's better to keep it And maybe that'll be a future pruning of the root system. There's a few going strange direction here. Okay, I think that's got my surface roots sorted out. No, I've got to take those off. I just have to. They got to come off. They're just too high. You can see I have better roots below. That kind of gets my root plane down to one level. It's a bit awkward looking. You know, it's not a very smooth transition, but hopefully in the future that'll slowly smooth out. So I think that's got my major root pruning done. The only other thing I want to do is a bit of a profile prune, getting rid of some of these really long ones. So I'll clean up and we'll come back and do the profile pruning. So there's a look at all the roots I took off the tree. I was hoping, you know, not to have to do as much root work as I did today, but, you know, that's the way the tree grew. Here is my pot. This is a Fuku Bonsai pot. Fuku Bonsai tray 12171. Old Orchard Hill, Kingston, Minnesota. Yeah, I've had this pot for about 30 years. And it's grown a lot of trees in this pot. And the founder of Fuku Bonsai passed away last year, David. So it's kind of nice to have one of his pots. So I'm just trying the tree out in the pot. So here's the front. So that gives me a rough idea of the profile pruning I need to do. So the front of the tree is somewhere here. So I'm going to come in and prune back these longer roots, giving the roots room to grow in the pot before they hit the edge. And some off the back here. One sticking up there. Now I haven't gone underneath the root base yet. There's one going straight down here. I can trim back. You know, any of these ones that are kind of growing straight down, just trim them back. And I mentioned I had that thick one over here, which is part of my root base, so that'll have to stay there. This bottom one could come off. It's just not doing much underneath. And I think that's good. I think the tree is ready to be planted. And I don't know how this Brazilian rain tree is going to react to this pruning. I know they, you know, don't really like being repotted, but maybe, you know, with this spring repotting, it'll recover quickly. I don't know. Even though this is a plastic pot, it has tons of patina on it. It's really quite nice. And, you know, I don't think there's anyone who collects plastic pots or anything, but this is a beauty. I really like it. Yeah. So, let's get the drainage screens in now. All right, in goes my base layer of soil. And then I'll have to position the tree. So, I've got to find the front of my tree, which I think is right about here. And then, in the pot, I think because I have so much foliage on the right hand side, I'll want to offset it to the left slightly. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. I think right about there. And the height looks good in the pot, so that is where the tree will go. Little air pockets. Well, the tree feels pretty good in there. I will have to place some stones on the surface of the soil just to hold it in place while the roots are regrowing. Okay, I think I'm going to step back before I water the tree, just have a final look at it. So there is a look at the tree. Yeah, I think it's looking good. I'm happy with the position in the pot. It's just slightly offset to the left. It's nice and vertical. All is looking good. I am ready to water the tree. All right, here I go with the water. Okay, so I'll place some stones around the tree to hold it in place so it's not shaking about. I mean, it's pretty firm in there, but once the tree goes outside, it should get some support. I'm going to leave it in the greenhouse for now. I'll rotate the tree around so you can see it from all angles. So here's the front, coming around to the right-hand side, to the back, the left-hand side, and back to the front. Here is where the Brazilian rain tree will recover in the greenhouse here. I placed stones around the trunk there. A lot of heavy-duty bonsai work on the Brazilian rain tree today, both pruning and root pruning. I'm not sure how the tree will react. Hopefully it won't drop all its foliage, but if it does, you just keep watering it. I've had a cutting that dropped its foliage. I kept watering it for almost a year and then it started growing. So don't give up on your Brazilian rain tree if it defoliates itself. Just keep watering it, keep it moist, warm, and in good light, and chances are the cutting will recover. To see if it's alive or dead, you can see the branch color will go from kind of a gray, greeny color to more of a brown color. So more of a rusty brown color, and it'll shrivel up in diameter. So that's about the only sure way you can tell if your branch or cuttings are still alive. They do grow quite easily from cuttings. You just have to keep them warm, humid, stick them in soil and be patient. It can take, as I said, up to a year before you start to notice growth on your cuttings. So I'll put some rocks on the surface of the soil and find a nice spot in the greenhouse here for it. Keep my fingers crossed that all goes well, and I'll give you updates in the future. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.